listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry.
Welcome to the Savvy Musician Academy. This is CJ Ortiz. I am the branding and mindset coach here at the Savvy Musician Academy. Hope you're having a great week. Thanks for being with us today. This is a special little podcast we're doing today. Have a dear friend who's also a student at the Savvy Musician Academy, currently in our elite program. He's also been through the Online Musician, or TOM, as we call it for short. And I'm going to bring him in just a second. First of all, if you would like to, please give us a review. Go to your respective podcast player. If they have stars, click on as many of them as you can. Write something nice. You can also always go to our Facebook groups to leave a comment and or question. In fact, if you have a certain topic you'd like for Leah and I to cover in the future on the Savvy Musician Show, please do so. But I've been loving having these student interviews because when you say student, you kind of think of, well, this is somebody who's not a professional. No, they're only a student in the Savvy Musician Academy. They're very much professionals as it relates to music. So the people that we're bringing on are capable, experienced musicians, and the gentleman that I'm bringing on today is one such, and that's really the crux of his story. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Jeff Pearce to the podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, CJ?
Wonderful. You and I have become friends over this past year, and dabbling with each other online in all sorts of formats and whatnot. But
Yep.
I've really enjoyed getting to know you, Jeff, and just what you're doing. But just to talk a little bit about your music, just to get everybody on the same page with what you're doing, tell us a little bit about the music that you play, the music that you write, and how long you've been doing it.
Well, I've been doing what I'm doing for approaching 27 years now, as far as putting albums out into the world, compact discs and all that. It gets described as ambient music, and that's probably as good of a description it'll get. I do everything on electric guitars, just layering and processing, and sometimes it sounds like an electric guitar, and most of the time it does not. So it's creating more of an atmospheric, kind of ethereal sound as opposed to what people normally associate with electric guitar.
I think when you and I first talked, we talked a little bit about that particular genre of music, ambient music.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I kind of come from the side of the heavy metal, a side you're also very familiar with.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Well,
But,
it's kind of hard to be our age and not be familiar with.
And not be, especially a
lot of
guitar
metal
player.
groups. Oh, yeah.
Especially
Definitely.
a guitar player. But anyway, oftentimes, as I said, because I also work in design and advertising, and so much of what I do professionally, Jeff, requires thought. So I can't have some of the music that I love playing in the background because it's too distractive.
Right.
The lyrical content especially is too distractive. So I love music that's instrumental, in particular ambient music. Because even instrumental stuff like your Steve Vais and Yngwie Malmsteen and that sort of thing, even those can get somewhat distracting.
Right.
So ambient music is supposed to be just that. It's creating an atmosphere. So I've learned to appreciate it over the years, and specifically anything that's come out of Windham Hill, which is kind of the watermark there of ambient music. And you've worked with those guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Will Ackerman that founded that label, he's an old friend of mine going back to 2002, I think, 2001 or 2002, somewhere in there. And they were not only one of the first, instrumental labels like that just sort of put their flag in the ground and saying, this is what we are. But at the start, at least, they were an indie label, that Will started Windham Hill, so he'd have a place to release his own albums. And over time, I've just begun to see there are a lot of labels like that, a lot of good labels like that that have followed. People just didn't have an outlet for their own music, and they were shopping them to labels, and of course getting most of the time no reply at all, one way or the other. And there in the late 80s, early 90s, there kind of seemed to be a whole bunch of people saying, you know what, I'll do it myself. And they went on and did it themselves.
Yeah, and so I remember discovering that in the 80s. I was, like yourself, guitar player, and so I was overtaken initially by, that age of guitar gods. And as you advance from, Eddie Van Halen and Frank Marino and Randy Rhoads, you then Yngwie and then Steve Vai and then Vinnie Moore, and then you keep pressing onward into like Eric Johnson.
Yeah.
And then you discover this ambient players. And so when you listen to a Will Ackerman and who's the other guy, DeGrassi.
Yeah, Alex DeGrassi.
You're looking at, they're doing it all on acoustic.
Right.
These heavy string acoustics, but you learn to appreciate the power of ambient music. Now, obviously, it's grown into other things like, kind of more of a new age kind of thing. And so there's that culture there. But just the pure instrumental stuff is really, really powerful music and a huge niche. There's a lot of people around the world that listen to that music, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is. And they listen to it exactly how you were describing. You've got work to do. You're working on stuff. You need something because, let's face it, if you're immersed in something, sometimes you can go down that rabbit hole too far. And you just kind of need something surrounding you. And that's probably not the time for Judas Priest or anything else like that. So, and what I've appreciated over the years with ambient music, and it was natural for me to do it with my own music, is that there's an amount of space in it that it's not about filling all the space possible. It's about being okay with some things being quiet and some things just kind of floating. And that was something that resonated with me early on, because when I was a guitar student, taking classical and jazz lessons and all of that, I would just love to hold a chord and listen to it ring out and not even move on to the next one. It's just, no, I want to stay here. I want to stay here. I just want to listen to what's happening as the notes fade, because as you know, on the guitar, you play 5 notes at the same time on different strings, and each string's going to fade out different.
Right.
Some notes are going to last a little bit longer. Some are going to fade out sooner. And it's just a beautiful sensation as a player to be able to experience that. But as a listener, I love that as well. So the whole concept of space was really important to me to keep in my own music.
So when did you start recording your own music?
That would have been in 1993.
Okay.
And it was in the days before the internet as we know it. There in early 93, I don't think I knew anyone that even had an email account at that point. Computers were kind of the domain of businesses, and a personal computer was just kind of a weird thing. You'd hear about someone with a computer in their home, and it's like, oh wow, they must be a scientist, or they must, or something like that. So my first album was just, I recorded it at a local studio, and I had a friend of mine mix it and another friend of mine master it. And then I had 1,000 CDs in my apartment, and I was going, okay, what do I do now? What do I do? What do I do with all these CDs? And there was just nothing at that time that you could say, oh, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll take these and I'll sell them on CD Baby or Bandcamp, or I'll start my own e-commerce store. None of that was an option. And the sight of all those CDs was kind of frightening at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's always the challenge, right, for the musicians. The independent artist is, how are you going to move this product? So beginning in 93 to, let's say, about the time you discovered the Savvy Musician Academy, what year was that?
Oh my gosh, 2000. late 2016, early 2017.
So by then, how many albums had you had out approximately?
Oh boy. I'm about to release album number 15, 14. I would have had 12 albums out at that point, I think.
So you're an experienced recording artist, independent. You know your genre. You know the kind of music that you're making. You know, you've got your little niche. So up until the time that you come across the Savvy Musician Academy, where is your head in terms of the music industry? Are you frustrated with it? You don't know what the next way forward is?
I didn't know what it was. I mean, I knew that there had to be something different than what was happening, because I saw the old model just crumble. Right. I've told this to people when I started releasing my music in 1993. It was kind of like getting on a roller coaster. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see what's going to happen next. You can kind of see what's ahead as you swoop down. And then everything just started changing. The internet changed everything. And then you had, you had legal downloads. You had places like Napster, or the original Napster, where it was a lot sketchier. You just saw labels. I mean, like really big, solid labels just kind of crumble and disappear. Right. They didn't know how to handle this new thing called the World Wide Web. They were using basically marketing techniques and approaches from the 1960s to try to navigate this whole brave new world. And I'm not going to say that I'd given up, because at that point I'd released enough albums to where I knew I was still going to be doing that. That wasn't much of a question. It was just a question of, well, gee, where is everyone? I had some, I had a fairly loyal listener base at that point, from basically the mail order days of when, people would send me a check in the mail and I'd send back to them. So I'd been able to keep up with them. But as far as finding a new audience, I just had no clue. I didn't even know where to start.
Yeah. And it's amazing because you have this access, but in other words, through the internet, but it's like, well, how do you go about that? Or, reminds me of the Iron Maiden song, right? Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Uh-huh. Water everywhere.
And not a drop to drink. Yeah.
Not a drop to drink. So it's there, but you just can't touch it. You can't get to it. So it's 2016, you're 12 albums deep. Again, experienced musician, experienced recording artist. You have an existing base. And so did an ad from the Savvy Musician Academy, maybe featuring Leah, hit you and just say, I wonder if, or were you kind of in a mode where you were looking for something?
I wasn't really looking for something. And quite frankly, there was a reason I wasn't looking for something. And that's because most of the ads that I encountered online at that point were, and I'm going to phrase this as nicely as I can, they had con artists behind them. Right. And they were what I would call not trustworthy sources. Mm-hmm. But the ad that I saw with Leah, I just thought, why not? I could give this a try. And you know what? If she rips me off, if she steals my money, I'm not going to like it, but I can always replace money. What bugs me more at this point in my life is when someone wastes my time. Because I can't go get time back. I can go sell one of my way too many guitars to get money back, but I can't get my time back. And so I thought, you know what? I'll just start. And I think the program, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Facebook for Musicians. Okay. And it's like, you know what? I'll just try it. And I'm probably not going to like it. And it's probably going to be full of stuff I already know, but that's okay. I'll try it. And of course I was blown away. I mean, just immediately by not only the amount of information, but the depth of knowledge that Leah had about it. So at that point I was kind of like, okay, this is impressive. And I can see what this can do for my career. So yeah, I started putting it to work. And then when I saw, the online musician, I thought, well, I'll try it. It's probably not going to be any good, but her first one was good. This one probably won't be, but I'll try it. And of course, that was just next level for me. Right. And everything that I learned from that was just, it really changed how I approached not only what I was doing in a marketing sense, but also what I was doing as far as audience discovery. And that was just an amazing course to have under my belt once I got it under my belt, because there was a lot there. I mean, as you know, you just don't sit down with one of these things and, 45 minutes later, you're at the end of the course and you've got it all done. It's not like that at all. It takes a serious amount of time.
Isn't that interesting that, and this is, a big part of the online musician, again, we call it TOM, T-O-M, about the online musician, is that it does focus so much on, your target audience, which is not something that your average musician or band is going to think of as it relates to selling music or doing anything. They assume that. And so if you've never thought deeply about your potential target audience, then you're going to feel lost in this online space. So you have this ability to reach people. Now, as we've said in other podcasts and we've covered recently in our Inner Circle membership program, is that there's Facebook is a search engine, Google is a search engine, Facebook is a share engine. And since Google also owns YouTube is equally a search engine. So people go to YouTube and they put in search terms, but nobody goes to Facebook and puts in a search term.
No.
Right? So Facebook is a share engine. It's not a search engine. People get excited about content, whether it's a silly cat video or a political story or whatever it may be, and they share their memes and their whatever. So that's what we call viral. Viral meaning something spreading from one person to another. So then you run into this thing of then what musicians were early on doing once YouTube came around is, maybe people will discover me. And to do that, I need a lot of video views on YouTube. And so these become what we call vanity metrics. In other words, data that just promotes vanity. It really doesn't do anything. You can't do anything with these people. You don't know who's clicking like. You don't know who's watching. Right. But then with a Facebook, you've got this ability now to target specific people who like specific things and live in specific places, etc. Exactly. And so now the challenge for you is, I've never thought about my audience before. Right.
And once I did start to think about them at that point, especially after going through the Tom course, that completely, it went against what I would normally have done, which is good because what I was doing was nothing really. And it kind of challenged, a kind of long held belief that I kind of knew what my audience was. And to a certain extent I did, but there was just a lot of, there were a lot of holes that needed to be filled in. And Tom went a long way to do that. I mean, just going through that course was fantastic.
So also early on in the online musician program, Leah covers culture, which again has something to do with the shared lifestyle and community of now you as the artist and this new targeted audience that you're trying to reach. I mean, since when does somebody think about culture? And so was that an eye-opening thing for you? And what do you feel like, how important is that to what you're doing?
Well, first of all, that's really important. Second of all, and I am not saying this to be self-serving, so, forgive me if it comes off sounding like that. I had somewhat of a fairly good, if not slightly nebulous idea of my culture. because of the live shows that I've played over the years, something like that. Yeah, the people that come out, you can start to spot common trends. And also, and this was important for me, 95% of the time, I'm a fan of the genre that I play music in.
Right.
So you'd be surprised how many musicians I've met over the years that are playing a genre they don't particularly like. They're playing music that they could either take or leave. And
Right.
when you have that situation, you're going to be completely clueless as to who your culture is, because as a person, you're not going to want to hang out with the people that are really, really into the music, even though you're the one playing it, because you're not really, really into what you're doing. So when you have something like that, yeah, you're going to be really confused as to what your culture is. As far as my culture, ambient music goes, I would say ambient listeners, and I put myself in here too. We are very pleasant introverts. Yeah, there's a large amount of introversion. I've had feedback from listeners saying, I love to take your music, out into the country, put on headphones and stargaze, or, watch sunsets. I don't get a lot of people saying, my wife and I had a party last week. So
Right.
after Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest was over, we put on your latest
Right.
album. And
But
so
they're not taking it to the gym to do squats.
Oh, I hope not. Oh Lord, I hope not. I can only imagine the tempo there, because if you're doing the squats, you want something fairly fast. So down,
Right.
up, down, up. With ambient music, you just go down and then you wait for like 30 seconds. Okay, now come
Right.
up.
Right. So now you've got this culture and lifestyle, which is going to start now informing the kind of information that you're going to put in something like this Facebook ad manager, which is keeping track
Right.
of everybody's interests and likes. So now you're discovering, wow, I'm really thinking now, and I'm really, I think we don't ever really do this. We don't think about, well, what would my ideal super fan be like? What do they read? What do they watch?
Right.
What else? What other music do they listen to? Maybe other things. It could be in terms of the food they eat, the places that they frequent, the shows they go to, concerts, magazines.
Right.
So sitting down and thinking about that, and then putting that in the ad manager, and then being able to see the actual results, that had to be incredibly empowering, considering where you came from.
Right. It was an awful lot of information, definitely to deal with, to sit down and say, oh, wow, this kind of makes sense. You can just see all of these different bits of information just kind of come together and interlock and just form I was talking earlier about the holes of perception I had. Again, I've been doing this for a while, so I had a decent idea of what, the culture was around the people that listen to my music. But all of that information in the ad manager, all of the, in TV land, I guess I'd say demographics, all of that just sort of came together. And it's like, wow, I had not considered that.
Yeah.
Astronomy was the big one, and I guess
Wow.
it shouldn't have been, with all of the feedback I'd gotten over the years of people say, yeah, I'd love to take your music out and, listen to it while I watch the stars. Well, you know what? If they took my music out, they were taking music out by a bunch of other ambient musicians too.
Right.
It couldn't be just me. So, the astronomy one was a really big one.
Wow. It's really interesting because, and again, you and I could, talk about any one of these things really in depth, because you've been at this for a long time now. And the fact that you are doing the natural thing that we assume, which is target people who like similar artists, right?
Right.
Well, let's say, there's a whole lot of other musicians like yourself targeting those same things.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can then the ad price becomes a little bit more competitive, which means
Right.
the prices go up. And so you add this other element that maybe the other ones weren't thinking of, which is something
Exactly.
like astronomy. And
Yeah.
suddenly now you're targeting something they're not targeting.
Right.
And so your ad spend goes down and you get better clients, better listeners, better super fans,
Oh, yeah.
more high quality.
Yeah.
And again, this is all from, the simple things that you learn about understanding your micro niche, understanding your culture, understanding
Yeah.
your super fan, and being able to survey your fans and
Mm-hmm.
get information about what they want.
Yeah.
It's empowering,
No,
man.
It is. And I also found out pretty quickly, and I kind of suspected it, but it really drove home that people who are serious about listening to ambient music and all of that, they still love physical product.
Yeah.
I mean, they do. And I have seen that in my case when I've, just released a couple of singles, just digital singles. I've released them. I still, my main thing's physical product. But if I release a digital single, I will get an email within 24 hours from at least one person saying, "Oh, this is great. When are you going to put it on a CD?" So it's like, okay, maybe
So
next time.
Is that just, are they like just holding the product? Is it the fact that they feel like it sounds better? Are they, noise snobs?
Well,
sound snobs?
there's plenty. There's plenty of audio snobs
Mm-hmm.
that are serious ambient and new age music listeners. But I think the product, it has to do more with engaging more of the senses.
Yeah.
So you sit down and listen. I've been like that with every kind of music I like. I mean, I still like physical product. I love liner notes.
Mhm.
The more the better. When I
Right.
could sit down, and even when I was a teenager with, rock and metal, I'd sit down
Mhm.
and I'd scour the liner notes. I wanted to know who the
Yeah.
producer was. I want to know who mixed it. I wanted to know who the recording engineer was. But I also wanted to know, okay, what are the lyrics to this song? Any insight from the musicians themselves? Even funny stuff, any
Yeah.
funny stuff in the liner notes. I'd want that whole experience. And
Special thanks.
Special thanks. Yeah. Who do they thank? And is there an interesting story behind who they thanked? And
Yeah. It's always like maybe like we thank so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and Hershey bars.
yeah,
It's like always something like that.
or something like that. Or they'd thank a really crappy divey
Mhm.
restaurant or
Right.
bar on the Sunset Strip or something. So
Yeah.
that was always good to see. I loved the liner notes. So that's something else that I pay attention to when I do my projects, is that the liner notes are as well done as I can do them. They're certainly not going to be as great as
Right.
other artists, but just to basically give a sense of what the recording is, how it came about, and where it sits in my overall catalog.
Well, I love this because it highlights the concept that Savvy talks about a lot, which is super fans. You're not
Right.
looking for millions and millions of just generic listeners. You're looking
no.
for super fans. You're looking for a smaller community of dedicated people who really are invested in this form of music. And with that alone, someone can sustain their livelihood well just off
Definitely.
the music and merchandise being sold to a dedicated community of super fans, which is why understanding micro niche, culture,
Mm-hmm.
target audience, and
Yeah.
the kind of tools to get that information is so vital to being what we now refer to as the online musician.
Right.
Now, as we know, part of Leah's story is that, she did it as a stay-at-home mom
Mm-hmm.
and without touring, which still baffles music industry heads to this
Yeah.
day. So was that an appeal to you, that sort of thing? Or, how much was live music still a part of your drive?
Live music is still part of it. And I think that's because with quite a few artists in ambient music, they don't play live. So being able to do it live opened up doors for me that probably wouldn't have been opened had I not played live. So I've played, a lot of concerts over the years, and it's important for me to keep doing that. But I also see that just like with the music industry in general, the concert industry is changing as well. Live shows are changing as well. And some for the better, but some not for the better, just like in the music industry overall. So anything where someone is taking a new approach and getting great results, they're going to get my attention. And Leah got my attention by, basically talking about how she's a stay-at-home mom to 5 kids. She doesn't tour, and yet she's created this really, really strong fan base. And I think that's fantastic. It's inspiring.
Yeah. And so for you now, moving forward, again, like you said, Leah came on the radar about 2016. And so now here we are into 2020. And so where is Jeff Pearce now?
I am, like, literally hours ago, I started taking pre-orders for my latest CD. So that would be album number 15. And it's always, each project is different. So the whole idea of just sort of taking an assembly line approach to making the music, it's like, no, it's not like that. Each project is different, but what the online musician, and I used that one right before my 13th album. Yeah. And what I learned from that, I'm convinced it got that album to chart on the Billboard New Age sales chart that year in 2017.
Wow.
When that album came out. And what I learned, I'm also convinced it had my second most recent album, the one that was released in fall of 2019. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard New Age sales chart. And I'm completely convinced it was because of what I've learned through Savvy Musician Academy and the courses. So anytime you have information that you can put to use and get great results with, I mean, you're going to keep doing that. Now, what I really like, because I want to make sure I get it right. This is going to be for the Online Musician 3.0, right?
Right.
Yeah. What Leah does with her courses that other people don't is that she goes back and updates them. When she has new information, guess what? It gets added and I find out about it. And I think we both know that Facebook, just forget the rest of the internet, Facebook has changed so much since the Online Musician Volume 1 came out. The first one came out. So, whenever there's new info, she goes back and she makes it available. And that's just something you don't see very much of.
Yeah.
It's the whole concept of you underpromise and overdeliver.
Right.
And that just goes so much against the experience that I've had with a lot of music marketing stuff, which has been overpromise and underdeliver.
Right. Well, and that's, I think, the key, because as you just noted, this is an ever-changing landscape, and what might be working now may not be working the next year, and what have you, and Facebook and social media channels make their changes and what have you. But the thing that's important is that, I think Leah said this recently, principles trump tactics. So she's, it always comes back to the proven principles of marketing that work offline, that have worked for years.
Exactly.
Used by direct marketers to sell all sorts of things, using these type of things in this online space, using them far more effectively than anything offline had ever achieved. Yeah. And I've made this note before, so long as I still get Domino's Pizza mailers, even though I don't eat Domino's Pizza. That tells me that the offline world in marketing doesn't have the sophisticated targeting features of, for example, Facebook. Because if they did, then I would be getting, ketogenic mailers delivered to my house, and they would only send the Domino's ones to those who they know already like Domino's Pizza or what have you. So, they would know. But for the most part, all these companies have is zip codes, and are you a homeowner? Are you college? And that's about all they know. Whereas in this new online space, you can get things down to age, political interest, clothes, where you shop, restaurants you eat, magazines you read, music you listen to, all of it, zip codes. You can narrow it down so targeted and then be able to reach, again, your ideal fan, which is, so, when I make the point about your particular story, it brought the transition, the key transformation for you, which was you've been doing this for so long, 12 albums in, started at 93, again, an experienced musician, an experienced independent recording artist. You were already doing it DIY, right? It was already going that way. But now you realize there was this huge opportunity online, and that you could now begin to focus your attention. But how do you get that done? And then coming across the Savvy Musician Academy and getting those tools and considering things that maybe weren't considered to the depth that you did now. And so this has further equipped you to go into your next season. So looking forward, as we conclude, do you have hope for the Jeff Pearce music empire moving forward?
Well, first of all, I'm more than happy to take those Domino's coupons off of you. If you just want to send them to me, I'll take those. And second, I always knew I was going to keep doing music, but I'd also prepared myself for the fact that it was probably going to take a long time, if not a very long time, for me to make it work in the way I wanted to see it. I had also kind of begrudgingly accepted that I would have to be signed to a label to get the kind of results that I wanted to see. And so now that I am getting those kinds of results without a label, it's just been not only eye-opening, but it's been fuel on the fire. It's kept me moving forward, because I see that there are principles that if I follow these, and if I take this approach, that, I'm going to get results. And it's been surprising, but it's also been encouraging at the same time that, wow, okay, this works. This works. And I want to make it work some more, if that makes sense. So yeah, because that's what we call scaling, right? We can move it an inch, we can move it a mile, so let's move it. Well, that's all. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today on the Savvy Musician Show. Like I said, Jeff and I go back and forth offline because not only we're friends, but we're also participate in some groups together. And very, very talented musician. Jeff, where can people go to learn more about you? You can just go to jeffpearcemusic.com. And that's Pearce. Yeah, I'm one of 4 people that spell it like that in the United States. So, Jeff, Pearce. jeffpearcemusic.com. We'll have this, of course, in the show notes. But again, Jeff, thank you so much for being with us. Oh, thank you. I loved being here. So everybody, listen, if you'd like to learn more, we've got some really good things coming up as we prepare for the launch of the Online Musician 3.0. This will be the most cutting edge version of any online musician training program. And like Jeff said, he got tired of charlatans. He got tired of people that just were not providing good information. And so if you want the latest and the greatest, then please stay tuned. We'll be announcing more details soon about the Online Musician 3.0. If you're unfamiliar with any of this and you'd just like to start getting your feet wet
in online marketing for musicians, the very best thing that you can do, and I encourage you to do it right now, is to sign up for our Inner Circle membership. It is called the Inner Circle membership, and it provides you with a Inner Circle monthly newsletter / magazine, as well as an audio version of it. Both are downloadable. And you also get a mini course, a mini tutorial also with that. It will introduce you into everything marketing. But even if you're experienced in advance, even our most elite students still subscribe to their Inner Circle membership because it provides such cutting-edge information like tools of the month, books of the month, tips of the month, motivational articles, in the student spotlights like someone like Jeff Pearce, and a whole lot of other awesome information. To learn more about that, go to savvymusicianacademy.com/inner circle. This is CJ Ortiz, again, branding and mindset coach here at the Savvy Musician Academy, and we will see you guys soon. This episode is sponsored by the Online Musician 3.0, the upgraded version of the flagship music marketing course from the Savvy Musician Academy. This cutting-edge music marketing course is set to release soon, so sign up now for our waiting list to receive up-to-date information at explodeyourfanbase.com. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins recently said in an interview, "If I was going to give you 60 seconds of advice, I would put your whole focus into reaching people through the internet." There's no better way to start reaching your ideal fans on the internet than by the Online Musician 3.0, which covers cutting-edge topics like mindset training, branding secrets and tutorials, creating a website that converts, Instagram for musicians, YouTube for musicians, using and leveraging Facebook groups, monetizing your music, creating a successful album launch, and much, much more. If you're ready for your next level in creating your own online music business, then sign up now for our waiting list at explodeyourfanbase.com.